I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and on today's Retro Hunting Adventures, we're looking at Super Noah's Ark 3D, or if you prefer, Super 3D Noah's Ark. But either way, one of the jankiest janks to ever jank in the history of Super Nintendo. This was originally made by Wisdom Tree, but has since been licensed by Pico Interactive for re-release. And one of the things they did with their re-release was a significant improvement over the original release, but I'll have to show you a photo first to explain why. Notice how the original Super Noah's 3D Ark looks like a Sonic & Knuckles cartridge? It's a Frankensteiner where you're supposed to plug something into the top. That's because this was an unlicensed Super Nintendo game, so to actually get it to work on a Super Nintendo, you had to plug a real Super Nintendo game into it. That's right. To play this game, you had to own another game, which surely couldn't have helped its sales, nor would the fact that it was only available in Christian bookstores and game stores have made this any bigger of a seller, which is why original copies of it go for hundreds of dollars now. Thankfully, the Pico Interactive version is a little more affordable, even complete in box, although as you'll see in a moment, complete in box is somewhat up for debate here. All we've got inside this box is a tray, a plastic bag to hold the game, and the game itself. No manual of any kind, not even a fold-up poster, but at least we don't have to plug it into another game to play the game, right? And the label is already peeling off, and this is brand new. It's not really a good sign of manufacturing quality on Pico Interactive's part. No offense to them, because I do like most of their products. But I also noticed on the back of the box, they couldn't even spell Noah's name right. They spelled it N-O-A. Unless that was meant to be a subtle jab at Nintendo of America, but I really don't think so. So if you were expecting a copy of Super Noah's 3D Ark or Super 3D Noah's Ark to be a really deluxe, exemplary packaging like you got with Undercover Cops from Retrobit Publishing and Limited Run Games, no. There's nothing else in here. No manual, no fold-up poster of any kind, and a peeling label and a box with a bunch of typos on the back. So, not quite the best effort possible, but let's play the game and talk a little more about why this even exists. Oh yeah, and the insert box has a tear in it too. They couldn't even get that right. Oh well. Now the background story behind this game is almost more fascinating than the game itself. This started out life as a licensed Hellraiser game on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, but obviously they dropped that license because they couldn't make a game suitable to the movies on the limitations of that platform, and then they rebranded from Color Dreams into Wisdom Tree, from a maker of secular games to a maker of religious-themed games, and a game based on Hellraiser at that point would not have been appropriate. Eventually, they licensed the engine from Wolfenstein 3D by id Software and retooled it to become what you see now. Instead of gunning down Germans, you're gunning down animals. Well, you're not really gunning them down. You're gunning them with fruit that puts them to sleep. So it's keeping with that Christian wholesomeness. I don't know how else to describe it, because you're obviously not killing anything, but you're still doing the things you would do in Wolfenstein 3D. You're moving through mazes, picking up health packs, picking up ammo. You just technically aren't killing anything. They tried. Well, they tried to shoehorn in that Christian theme as hard as they could. It's up for debate how successful that was. It's playable. I'll give it that much. And there's a legend out there that id Software did this licensing arrangement with Wisdom Tree in some sort of retaliation against Nintendo for unfair practices. But people at id Software have gone on the record and denied that and said, actually, we got along with Nintendo just fine. We only licensed this to Wisdom Tree for cheap because we thought this engine had outlived its usefulness to us, and we didn't need to ask for a mint to use it on other things. If people still wanted to use it, even though it was graphically outdated and underpowered and everything else, why not go for it? And they probably saw no harm in it either, because what harm did it do to allow their engine to be recycled for a Christian video game only sold in Christian toy stores and Christian bookstores that nobody would even recognize as Wolfenstein 3D? Only everybody would recognize it as Wolfenstein 3D because they didn't actually change it all that much, except in a vague attempt to make it somehow non-violent. But it feels pretty violent to me when you're getting attacked by these goats, and they really swarm you when you enter a room. You don't get much time to react. If you don't knock them out with the fruit immediately, your health can deplete down to 0 in no time flat. If there was some armor, if Noah could put on a suit of armor and defend himself, that would certainly be helpful. If there was a radar on the screen so you could tell where the enemies were and maybe get a little better bead on how to deal with them instead of just getting ambushed every time you turn a corner, that would be helpful as well. But when I said this is the jankiest of jank on Super Nintendo, these are the reasons why. It's rather absurd to be playing Wolfenstein 3D as Noah with a slingshot hitting animals with fruit. That's just comically crazy. It's so bad it's good. It makes you laugh at the absurdity of the whole thing. So I can't fault that, but I can definitely fault how jank the controls are, and I imagine Wolfenstein 3D on Super Nintendo would probably be just as jank too, because they're trying to make this work on something that's not a PC. And the Wolfenstein engine was, even though it was impressive at the time when it became one of the most popular 3D games and arguably set a standard for the genre, until it got reinvented years later with things like Doom and Quake and Duke Nukem. Well, you had to start somewhere, and Wolfenstein 3D was a starting point for a lot of us. So, yeah, I'll give it credit for that. And I suppose, given the paucity of this type of game, since you've got a lot of 2D games on Super Nintendo and a lot of RPG games, having a 3D shooter of any kind is a novelty. But once again, man, it's just so weird that this game existed back in the day, but you had to plug a cartridge into the cartridge to play it. And the only reason I would even want this is because Pico Interactive's version of it was like 40 or 50 bucks compared to the hundreds of dollars you would spend on a loose cartridge of this Wisdom Tree game. Well, that's it really. I can't add much more than that, because what you see is what you get. And what you get is funny, not so much great, playable, but not so much enjoyable except for the campiness of it. Far from the worst thing I've ever played on Retro Hunting Adventures, let alone other series on this channel like Genesis Does, the PC Engine Files, Homebrew Review, etc. I mean, yeah, it works. Yeah, you can sort of figure out what's going on. And if you press start, you even get a map of the Ark that shows you the different rooms you're progressing to and where the doors are. You still don't get a radar of any kind, but at least that's some kind of help. So I won't go so far as to say it's complete garbage, but it's more like if you watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and you see things like Ega or Manos the Hands of Fate, it's more like that, where they unintentionally made something good by making something bad. And it's best experienced in that context of being, oh my god, I can't believe this exists. No pun on the Christian theme there, but yes, oh my god, Super Noah 3D's Ark is a thing. And this week, it's a thing on Retro Hunting Adventures. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. Thanks as always for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. All of those things help the channel grow. If you share the video, that's great. If you click on the notification bell, that's great too. Whatever you do, I appreciate the support, and thank you for watching.